Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Snorlaxis here, and I'm bringing you guys finally another league. So I'm hoping to be uploading this for what is season 9 of the PBF. So this is going to kind of go over the team that I drafted, why I drafted it, the order, kind of what's special about each mon, just that type of stuff. And then hopefully, if this recording software finally works, I'll be able to actually upload some battles this time too, rather than just a random video here or there. So to start things off, I kind of had like a middle of the draft pick. I think I was like fifth or sixth, so I was kind of up there, but like all the really high tier stuff was gone instantly as usual. So I decided to try something that I haven't used in quite a while. So I decided to go with Mega Gallade. Mega Gallade is, I mean, it's a kind of the definition of a physical wall breaker. It gets sword dance, bulk up. It has just absolutely sky high attack. If we look at the stats here, it's got 165 base attack, 110 speed, and just all that sort of beautiful stuff. On top of that, too, it gets a really wide variety of coverage moves. It gets ice move, it gets electric moves, it gets fighting and psychic, obviously. It gets dark, and it has a whole lot of like really underused uh, support moves as well. Like it gets Destiny Bond, it gets Will O Wisp, and a lot of stuff along those lines where you really won't bring it to every match and you won't see it very often. But in the right situation, it could really come in handy. So following this up, obviously I had quite a few people after me, so I wasn't sure if it was going to make it back to me, but if it did, I really wanted to take it. And I ended up being able to snag Hydreigon from Tier 2, which is kind of why I was eyeing it, because a lot of times leagues will put it up in Tier 1. Because usually it's a really high Tier 2 pick, and it's kind of a low Tier 1. So I wanted to take advantage of that while I could. To kind of complement the specialties of Mega Gallade, Hydreigon has that high special attack sitting at the 125. Its speed is a little lackluster, saying that it's not quite 100, but it's also not low enough where it has extra bulk or anything. But this mon does have a lot of potential as a wall breaker, scarfer, any of the above. It gets again a lot of coverage. This is kind of the main reason I wanted it too. I wanted my first two picks to both be very offensive, have a lot of coverage, not be able to be easily checked. As you can see, it also gets quite a wide variety of physical moves. So if you have a match where, let's just say, someone might use like a especially defensive normal type, you can run a physical Hydreigon with superpower, let's say, and usually do a pretty hefty chunk of damage to it. So I decided, and then after that, I decided I should probably start working on a core because like there was some other stuff I was looking at, but if I didn't start trying to grab a core, I would probably lose a lot of that pretty high value picks that are usually used in those cores. So I decided I'd probably pick one since I already had Dragon. I'll go with my Fairy Dragon Steel core first. And probably the best fairy left on the table when I got around to it was Florges. Florges is just all around a very just bulky, kind of annoying mon to kill. Its defense is kind of okay. Its HP is a little better, but then that special defense makes it so that you really don't have to, unless you have a very specific matchup, run very much special defense. You can kind of invest yourself into that defense and make it so you can actually live some physical hits, as long as they're not from something super crazy or they're super effective. Florges is kind of like the definition of a support mon with Wish, Protect, Toxic, Aromatherapy, Defog, being my second defogger. Actually, I forgot to mention too that Hydreigon now has defog. So that's the one thing I try to do with this team too. Is a lot of times I get really sidetracked and don't end up getting very much removal because I'm not a huge hazard player. But I wanted to make sure I got a couple on this one. So having all that support would be very nice. And to complement that, to finish off the core, I wanted another support mon that can also be used offensively, so I'm not going strictly for defense here, with Empoleon. Empoleon gets rocks, giving me my first form of hazards, along with Defog again, so I don't have to use Florges for that. And then a pretty wide variety, too, of both physical and special offense. Like I can go Aqua Jet Avalanche for a physical. It gets, obviously, all the regular kind of water-type moves, so Scald, and then it gets, like, Ice Beam, and all that good stuff. And it's just overall a pretty fun mon to use. It's my favorite starter. It gets knockoff. I mean, what doesn't get knockoff these days? But yeah, I'm really looking forward to using it. Like I haven't used it in a league, I don't know, ever. And if I have, it's been quite a long time. Just because like it usually I gets gone before I need it, or I already have a higher tier water steel types. I really have no need for it. So I'm pretty excited to use that. And I was kind of shocked when I got to around the round 5 that Tangrowth was still there, considering, like, for me anyway, Tangrowth is a pretty high value grass type for cores. I mean, it has that regenerator ability, makes it you can just kind of hop in and out, eat hits, and get your health right back. And it has such a wide variety too of attacks, both physical and specialty, that if you're gonna run offensive or even just like multi-attack for like an assault vest variant, like I have listed here, that you really can't predict exactly what it'll have. Like if you're running a especially defensive fairy and you switch it in thinking that I'm just gonna hit you with like a Giga Drain and or even a Sludge Bomb and you're not gonna take very much. If you get hit with a Poison Jab and you don't have very good defense, it can do a hefty chunk of damage plus that chance to poison. And then it gets a nice wide variety of support moves of like knockoff, leech seed, sleep powder, all the above. And it's just mainly going to be on this team though, probably just to eat some hits for stuff like Hydreigon or some of my later picks that are a little more frail, which we'll get to down the line here. And so I decided, like, I was kind of looking at it, and I had Florges for a fighting resistance, which isn't a great fighting resist by any means, and I also have Mega Gallade, but I really didn't want another fighting weakness yet, but I decided it was pretty important, both for Tangrowth and Hydreigon, that I get an ice resist outside of Empoleon. And so rather than going for another type that resists it, I decided to go with an ability. So I went and got Meltank out of tier 4 so I can get that thick fat ability. Also, I mean, I can get you Sap Sipper or Scrappy if needed. More than likely, though, with my team not being super grass weak overall, I'm not super worried about it unless someone has like maybe Tapu Bulu. I'd run Sap Sipper as a counter. But yeah, Thick Fat will be the main use for it. Again, another great support mod with stuff like Stealth Rock, Milk Drink. It has Toxic, obviously, and just it has Curse, Heal Bell, just a lot of great support moves. But it does have a pretty decent speed at 100, and then 80 attack isn't great by any means, but it can do a little bit of damage. So if I wanted to run an offensive variant, especially if I ran like Curse, Milk Drink, and then 2 attacks or so, I could do a little bit of damage of Meltank. And I've seen people too run like Bandit or Scarf Meltank, just kind of not necessarily scare your opponents. What I'm thinking of here, like catch them off guard, I guess. Like because you can run like a Scarf, let's say like Fire Punch Meltank on a Kartana, and the Kartana might think it's going to get off like a Titanium Z or something on you, and it just dies. So that could be interesting. I might run an offensive, maybe 1 or 2 weeks, but again, another mon that's going to be pretty strictly defensive for me. That brings me into another mon that is going to 100% be defensive for me. There's no possible way I'm ever going to run this thing offensive outside maybe hitting someone with a gyro ball or maybe like an explosion every once in a while or something just because I don't have anything else to do. To kind of free up some of my stuff like Meltank or Empoleon, even though I already had my Steel type and I wasn't planning on grabbing this, but some other stuff I was looking at had already gone and there's just really nothing left on the board in Tier 4 that I needed. I decided to go for Fortress, mostly because I didn't have any spikes or toxic spikes yet, so that gave me a little bit of freedom to use some different hazards outside of rocks, but also to take rocks off of stuff like Meltank or Empoleon or some of my later picks again, just to make sure that I have some variety of hazards, so you can't just plan for one certain hazard setter. Like you have to kind of imagine that they all might have it, and then the ones that don't have it, what moves do they have in place of it? It also gives me a rapid spinner, which I didn't have yet, because I did have those 3D foggers in Hydreigon, Florges, and Empoleon. But if I want to, let's say, hazard stack with like Empoleon and Fortress in a week and keep them on the field, I can't just be defogging my own hazards away constantly. So I need a rapid spinner, and so that's kind of the biggest reason I took it, honestly, is this wider variety of hazards than the rapid spin. And then I added yet another mon that has rocks potential, although more than likely I won't be running rocks variants on it. I'll be using it as like a bulky attacker, which would be Rhydon. Rhydon is probably my favorite tier 5 I've ever used just because it is very defensive. So it checks stuff that up in those upper tiers pretty decently. Some of those physical dragons, like even like Mega Charizard X, like you can switch in on like a Dragonclaw or an Outrage and take maybe 30% and a little more if they're set up. And you can have that Oko if you have even just a little bit of attack investment, so they have to either switch out, or if they're locked in or want to just get a little more damage off you, they're going to lose a pretty high tier threat to a low tier mon. And on top of that, it does get pretty good step opportunity having Rock Polish, Sword Stance, a couple other things along those lines, and a decent decent variety of moves as well. I mean, he gets Aqua Tail, Avalanche, Brick Break, Crunch. Obviously, he gets Stone Edge and Earthquake, as I already have listed, and then even like stuff like Dragon Tail, like to phase people out. If I am hazard stacking, like just running a bulky Rhydon just to try and phase a couple things out, get a little extra damage before they're able to get rid of hazards could be helpful. And then the one other thing that I wanted to point out with Rhydon that not very many people I see use, I mean, also gets Roar, I guess, for phasing if Dragon Tail isn't a thing, is that it does. Where did the move go? It must be down in the not very much use. It does get counter, which again, like I said, for some of those really high tier threats, like if someone's going to fire off like a fighting move or like a neutral hit that's not grass or water when you're 4 times weak, you have a decent chance to live it. So you can take out like, let's say like a. I'll use my own Mega Gallade. If I have some defensive and HP investment, Rhydon can for sure live a close combat or a Drain Punch or something from a high tier fighting type like Mega Gallade, and then insta kill it with counter right back. And that's something that people are gonna have to prep for if they think of it, but they can't always prep for that. Like you can't expect that because let's say they go for a set move themselves, thinking that I'm gonna counter, and I rock polish and outspeed them the next turn, then they're kind of just done. And yeah, so that leads me then to my other tier 5 pick, and that would be Avalugg. I haven't used Avalugg in a league before. I've drafted it once before, never brought it just because like the team I had was, I guess, kind of stacked in the way that I never would need it. Although I'm kind of hoping to bring it with this one, especially since like with those high tier dragons being so valuable and a lot of them having either mainly physical moves or kind of mixed. Avalugg can eat a lot of those hits and then fire back into Avalanche. And then again, it surprised me with one more, my final, I believe, form of hazard removal with that rapid spin. Also gets reliable recovery in recover. And it can just be kind of an annoying mon to kill if it's stuck in against a physical attacker. Like, there's not, I don't think, a single physical attacker in the game that's going to OHKO you from with that 184 defense and 95 HP if you're invested. Like there's not a single thing that's going to really hurt you, and even if they do, you have that sturdy to at least live the one hit if you want to get off a rapid spin or a toxic or something on it. So throughout this entire draft, I wasn't really planning on doing this. Like I've never done this before, but like I said, some of my stuff that might be higher tier in some leagues, like let's say Hydreigon, was tier 2. So I had Hydreigon and Florges in my tier 2. I had tier 3 Empoleon and Tangrowth, and Tangrowth a lot of times can be tier 2 as well. So some things were kind of lower tier than others. So I ended up not drafting any tier 1 picks until my last 2 picks. So that kind of was nice because I could plan ahead. Most people had all their picks out of the way from that upper tier. So I didn't have to worry too much about getting sniped. So I saved just a couple picks. I decided I had a decent amount of physical attackers with Rhydon, Meltank. I mean, I guess you can throw a Fortress in there. Tangrowth is mixed. Empoleon can be mixed. Hydreigon can be mixed. And, of course, Mega Gallade is just a monster. Even Avalugg can get in there, too, on the physical attacker. But I didn't really have any super strong special attackers outside of Hydreigon, so I decided to add 2 more. The first being one of my 2 Z users, which I didn't mention this of Avalugg. I made Avalugg a Z user, too, because I had to use a tier 5, and I don't think I'm ever going to use Z Rhydon over Eviolite or something else. So I have my baby Thunderous T. I love this thing. Hits like a truck. You can run physical in this as well. It's not quite as useful, but it is helpful. Gets nasty plot agility. Good variety of coverage moves. There's not very much you can do to stop it once it gets set up. You have to either have priority, outspeed it, or just don't let it stop in the first place. Otherwise, it will run through you. And then to kind of just play around the two with the other stuff I had, I didn't have a fire or ghost type yet, and I saw Blacephalon was still sitting there, so I decided to grab Blacephalon. I love this thing as well. I've used it a couple times. That Beast Boost, adding on a Choice Scarf or a Specs, depending on the matchup with speed tiers. And it gave me one more Mon over base 100, which I kind of needed, because Mega Glade is my fastest Mon, which 110 is not slow, but it would be nice to have some faster stuff. But between just making sure that I have a couple different things like set up speed wise and keeping my opponent's scarfers like under control, I think that my speed won't hinder me at all. And the stuff on like it really doesn't get very much as far as support goes, but you can run like a knockoff, you can run Calm Mind, you can run some other fun stuff with it. But mostly you're gonna be running just full on offensive with fire and ghost moves and just either use it to clean up or to just break some holes. yeah, so that'll be the PBF Season 9 team. I hope to upload some battles with this, so let me know what you think.